Deep in the cold emptiness of space, a giant starship floated silently. This ship, known as the Elysium, had been a home to humanity's best and brightest, designed to explore the universe. However, for 1 million years, it had remained dormant, its crew trapped in cryo-sleep, unaware of the time passing around them. Inside the ship, the cryopods began to hum and shake. A bright light flickered in the dark room as the machines started their long-forgotten tasks. One by one, the cryopods opened, releasing the crew from their deep slumber. Captain Alexia was the first to awaken. She blinked against the bright lights and took a deep breath, her heart racing with confusion and fear. "Status report!" she commanded, her voice echoing in the silence. But there was no immediate response. The room was empty, and a sense of dread filled her chest. Where was everyone? Slowly, she began to remember. She was in charge of the mission to explore new worlds, to find resources, and to expand humanity's reach. But what had happened? Why had they been put into cryo-sleep for so long? As she struggled to clear her mind, Alexia stepped out of her pod and looked around. The room was filled with advanced technology, blinking lights and screens showing static. She noticed a few other pods beginning to open. One by one, her crew members emerged, looking just as confused as she felt. "Captain! What happened?" asked Lieutenant Max, rubbing his eyes. He had been one of her closest friends and the best pilot she knew. "I don't know, Max," she replied, trying to stay calm. "But we need to find out. First, we need to check the ship's systems." Together, they moved to the control center where they found more crew members waking up. The faces of the soldiers were filled with confusion, fear, and curiosity. As they gathered around the main console, Alexia took a deep breath and pressed a button to access the ship's records. The screen flickered to life, revealing a series of images and data. The first few records showed their mission, the target planets they had planned to explore, and their last known location. But then everything changed. The logs began to display warnings, crisis alert, alien attack, cryo-sleep initiated, and finally, status unknown. Alexia's heart sank as she pieced the information together. They had been attacked. The ship had gone into emergency cryo-sleep to protect the crew from a powerful enemy. But who had attacked them? And why? "We need to find out what happened to Earth," Alexia said, her voice steady despite the fear creeping into her heart. "Max, can you get the communications back online?" Max nodded and started working on the controls. As he fiddled with the buttons, the rest of the crew watched with anxious expressions. Time seemed to stretch on as they waited for the system to respond. Finally, a crackling sound filled the room. Come on," Max urged, his fingers dancing over the controls. Suddenly, a voice broke through the static. "This is the Galactic Federation. If anyone is out there, respond immediately." Alexia's heart raced. "We're here! This is Captain Alexia of the Elysium. We've been in cryo-sleep for 1 million years. There was a long pause before the voice replied. 1 million years? Impossible. Humanity was believed to be extinct. Shock rippled through the crew. "Extinct?" Alexia echoed, disbelief coloring her voice. "What happened?" The voice explained that after their last mission, Earth had been attacked by a powerful alien race called the Xylar. The Xylar had seen humanity as a threat and waged war, wiping out most of the population. The remnants of humanity had been forced into hiding, and the Federation had been searching for them ever since. Alexia felt a wave of anger and sadness wash over her. Her people had been hunted, and she had awakened to find everything changed. But they were alive, and they were back. "Gather everyone," she commanded. "We have to prepare. Humanity is not done yet." With renewed determination, Alexia turned to her crew. They had a mission to reclaim their lost legacy and find their place in the galaxy once more. The awakening was just the beginning, and she was ready to lead them into the fight. Captain Alexia stood at the control console, her heart heavy with the weight of her crew's uncertain future. The voice from the Galactic Federation had delivered shocking news. Humanity had been driven to the brink of extinction. Yet, amidst the despair, they were alive. The crew of the Elysium had a chance to reclaim their home and fight back. "Max, can you access the old ship logs?" Alexia asked, her mind racing with questions. "I want to know what happened before we went into cryo-sleep." Max nodded, his fingers flying over the console. The screens flickered as he searched through the archives. Images and data began to appear, showing maps of the solar system and updates on humanity's last missions. "We were exploring the outer planets," Max said, scanning the information. We had just discovered a new resource-rich planet when the Xylar attacked. This doesn't make sense. What do you mean? Alexia asked, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. The last log indicates that we had made contact with a nearby alien race for help against the Xylar, Max replied. But the data cuts off abruptly. It's like they just disappeared. Alexia's mind raced. If there were other races that could help them, they needed to find them. But first, they had to understand what had happened to Earth. All right, let's analyze the records from Earth, Alexia commanded. We need to know the extent of the damage. As the crew gathered around the console, Max pulled up satellite images from Earth. The screen displayed a planet once full of life and vibrancy, now marred by destruction. Cities lay in ruins, overgrown with plants and debris. The oceans were dark and polluted, and vast areas of land were barren. "This is awful," whispered Sarah, one of the engineers. Her eyes widened as she took in the devastation. How could this happen? Alexia felt anger bubbling within her. "This is the work of the Xylar," she said, her voice firm. "They thought they could wipe us out and take our home. But they were wrong. We're back, and we will fight." The crew exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of fear and determination. They had woken from a long sleep to find their world shattered, but Alexia's fierce resolve inspired them. "Max, can you trace any signals from Earth?" she asked. "Maybe there are survivors." Max's fingers danced across the controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm trying, Captain. There are faint signals, but they're weak and scattered. It's like the planet is calling out for help." "Then we need to answer that call," Alexia declared. "We can't leave anyone behind. We have to find out who is still alive." As Max continued to work, Alexia turned to the rest of her crew. "Prepare the ship for launch. We're going to Earth." The crew moved quickly, gathering supplies and checking the ship's systems. The Elysium had been dormant for so long, but it still held the promise of technology and strength. They were ready for anything. "Captain, I've located a signal coming from a city called New Haven," Max announced, his eyes bright with excitement. "It looks like a group of survivors is trying to communicate." Alexia's heart raced. "That's our target. Set a course for New Haven!" As the ship powered up and the engines roared to life, a sense of hope filled the air. They were going back to their home, to their people. But as the Elysium broke free from its long slumber, Alexia couldn't shake the feeling of dread. What awaited them on Earth? The journey to New Haven felt like an eternity. As they approached the planet, the crew watched from the viewport. The beautiful blue and green orb they once knew now looked battered and broken. The once familiar sights were now reminders of loss and struggle. "Prepare for landing," Alexia commanded, her heart pounding. She took a deep breath, knowing they were about to face the unknown. As the ship descended, the crew felt a mix of excitement and fear. They were returning to a world they had lost, and they had to be ready for anything. The Xylar could still be out there waiting for them. When the Elysium landed in a clearing surrounded by trees, Alexia felt a rush of determination. They had awakened after 1,000,000 years, and now they were ready to reclaim their future. "Let's move out!" she shouted. "We're going to find our people and bring them home." With that, the crew stepped out of the ship, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were not just survivors, they were humanity's last hope, and they would not let their world be taken from them again. As Captain Alexia and her crew stepped out of the Elysium, the air was thick with tension. The smell of damp earth and foliage filled their lungs, but beneath that was a sense of danger. They had returned to Earth, a planet that had been their home, now transformed into a battlefield. "Stay alert," Alexia instructed, her voice steady. "We don't know what we'll find here." The crew formed a tight formation as they ventured away from the ship. The forest was eerily quiet, the sounds of birds and wildlife strangely absent. Alexia led the way, her heart racing with anticipation. They were searching for survivors, but they were also on high alert for any signs of the Xylar. After walking for several minutes, they reached a clearing. In the center stood the ruins of what had once been a bustling city. Buildings lay in crumbled heaps, and overgrown vines snaked through the debris. Faded signs hinted at a vibrant life that had once thrived here. "Look over there!" shouted Max, pointing to a group of figures moving among the wreckage. They looked human, but something about their stance seemed off. "Could they be survivors?" Sarah asked, squinting to get a better look. Alexia held up her hand, signaling everyone to stop. "Let's approach carefully. We don't know if they're friend or foe." As they drew closer, the figures came into view. The survivors were dressed in ragged clothes, their faces smeared with dirt and exhaustion. But just as Alexia felt a spark of hope, a loud, guttural growl echoed through the clearing. From the shadows, a group of Xylar emerged. Tall and menacing, their scaly skin shimmered in the dim light. Their eyes glowed with malice, and their sharp claws glinted like daggers. "Get behind me!" Alexia shouted, instinctively stepping forward. The crew quickly obeyed, forming a protective barrier around the frightened survivors. "What do we do, Captain?" Max asked, gripping his weapon tightly. Alexia's mind raced. She knew they were outnumbered, but she could not let fear take over. "We need to buy some time," she said, looking around for an escape route. "We can't let them take the survivors!" The Xylar advanced, their eyes locked on Alexia and her crew. "Humans!" one of the aliens hissed, its voice dripping with contempt. "You should not have returned. This world is ours now." Alexia squared her shoulders, refusing to back down. "We are not afraid of you! We are here to reclaim our home and protect our people." The Xylar leader sneered, its sharp teeth glinting. "You think you can stand against us? We have crushed your kind before and will do so again." Before Alexia could respond, one of the Xylar lunged at her, claws slashing through the air. Reacting quickly, she dodged to the side, her training kicking in. She fired her weapon, striking the creature in the chest. It fell to the ground with a roar of pain.
"Fight!"
she shouted. The crew sprang into action, weapons drawn. The clearing erupted into chaos as both sides clashed. Max and Sarah fought valiantly, their training and determination shining through. They worked together, covering each other as they faced the Xylar. Each shot rang out, echoing in the air as they fought for their survival and the lives of the survivors. But the Xylar were relentless. They fought back with ferocity, using their strength and numbers to their advantage. Alexia felt a surge of desperation as she noticed some of the survivors being captured in the chaos. "Max, we have to help them!" she yelled, pointing toward the struggling figures. With a nod, Max charged forward, weaving through the fight to reach the survivors. "Come with us!" he shouted, urging them to flee. Just as hope seemed to flicker, a massive Xylar swung its arm, knocking Max to the ground. Alexia's heart dropped as she saw him fall, but she quickly steeled herself. "Keep fighting!" she shouted, rallying her crew. "We can't let them win!" In a fierce clash, Alexia faced the Xylar leader, dodging its powerful strikes and countering with her own. The adrenaline coursed through her veins as she fought for her crew and her home. She refused to let fear defeat her. But just when it seemed they might overpower the Xylar, the leader roared in anger. "You will regret challenging us." Suddenly, a loud horn blasted through the air, shaking the ground. The sound was unlike anything they had heard before. The Xylar hesitated, glancing at each other in confusion. "What was that?" Sarah gasped, eyes wide. "I don't know, but we need to take advantage of this," Alexia shouted. With renewed determination, she and her crew launched a final assault on the Xylar, pushing them back as the horn sounded again, growing louder. Whatever had come was on their side. As the Xylar began to retreat, Alexia felt a flicker of hope. They had fought bravely, and now they had a chance to protect what remained of humanity. But who or what was behind the horn? What other surprises awaited them in this devastated world? The answers lay ahead, and they would face them together. After the fierce confrontation with the Xylar, Captain Alexia stood in the clearing, her heart racing. The horn had turned the tide, causing the Xylar to retreat, but the danger was far from over. Her crew was battered, and the survivors were shaken, but they were alive. "Everyone gather around!" Alexia called, her voice steady. She needed to rally her crew and the survivors. "We must regroup and assess our next move. We can't stay here for long." As the crew came together, Alexia noticed that some of the survivors looked familiar. They were the last remnants of the people she had once known. There was a sense of connection, a bond that rekindled the hope within her. "Who are you?" One of the survivors, a woman named Lena, stepped forward. Her eyes were filled with a mix of gratitude and fear. "We thought we were the only ones left." "We are the crew of the Elysium," Alexia replied. "We were in cryosleep for 1,000,000 years. We've just woken up to find our world destroyed and overrun by the Xylar." "Then you're the ones who came back to fight!" Lena exclaimed, her voice rising with excitement. "We've been hiding and trying to survive, but we need your help. The Xylar are not just attacking. They're planning something big." "What do you mean?" Max asked, his brows furrowed. "They've been searching for something. Lena said, glancing around as if fearing someone might overhear. "We believe they're after an ancient weapon hidden deep within the ruins of the old cities." Alexia's interest piqued. "A weapon? What kind of weapon?" "Legends say it was built long ago by our ancestors. It's said to have the power to defeat any enemy," Lena explained. "But we don't know where it is located. The Xylar must have discovered the stories and are searching for it." "We can't let them get their hands on it," Alexia said firmly. "If this weapon truly exists, it could turn the tide in our favor. We need to find it before they do," Max added, determination shining in his eyes. "Do you know where we should start looking?" Lena nodded slowly. "There's an old military base nearby. It was abandoned long ago, but it was rumored to house advanced technology. It might be our best chance." "Then that's where we go," Alexia decided, her resolve hardening. "We will find this weapon and make a stand against the Xylar." The group set off, moving cautiously through the ruins. The landscape was a haunting reminder of what humanity had lost. Buildings stood as skeletons, and nature was slowly reclaiming the land. But with each step, the crew and the survivors felt a spark of hope igniting within them. As they neared the military base, the atmosphere grew tense. Shadows danced among the debris, and every noise felt amplified in the eerie silence. Alexia led the way, her senses heightened, ready for anything that might come their way. Upon arriving at the base, they found a massive gate, rusted and covered in vines. It looked as if it had not been opened in centuries. "Can anyone get this open?" Alexia asked, looking at her crew. "I can try," Sarah replied, stepping forward. She examined the control panel next to the gate. With a few attempts, she managed to get it working. The gate creaked open, revealing the dark interior of the base. As they entered, the air was cool and stale. The lights flickered above, casting strange shadows on the walls. Rows of old equipment lay abandoned, covered in dust. "Stay close," Alexia whispered. "We don't know what we might find in here." The group moved cautiously through the dark corridors, their footsteps echoing in the silence. They explored the base, discovering remnants of technology long forgotten. It was a treasure trove of advanced weaponry and machinery, but they still hadn't found what they were searching for. "Look!" Max suddenly shouted, pointing to a large door at the end of the corridor. "That could be it." The group rushed toward the door, excitement and anxiety building. As they approached, they saw that the door was sealed with a complex locking mechanism. "Can you open it, Sarah?" Alexia asked. "I'll do my best," Sarah replied, her fingers flying over the controls. The seconds felt like hours as they all held their breath. Finally, with a beep, the door slid open, revealing a massive chamber filled with light. Inside, they found a weapon unlike anything they had ever seen. It was a sleek, powerful device, humming with energy. "This is it," Alexia breathed, awe washing over her. "This is humanity's hidden arsenal. Do you think it still works?" Lena asked, stepping closer to examine it. Max reached out, touching the weapon's surface. "It looks like it's still operational. We need to figure out how to use it." As they gathered around the weapon, a sense of purpose filled the room. They had come searching for hope, and now they had found it. With this powerful arsenal in their hands, they would reclaim their planet from the Xylar. But deep down, Alexia knew this was only the beginning. They would need to train to prepare for the battle ahead. The Xylar would not sit idle, and they would soon come for what they sought. The fight for humanity had just begun. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the ruins of the old military base. Inside, Captain Alexia and her crew stood around the powerful weapon they had discovered. Its hum filled the chamber, promising hope and strength against the Xylar. But time was running out. "Okay, everyone, we need to prepare," Alexia said, her voice steady. "We can't afford to wait. The Xylar will come for this weapon, and we must be ready." Max nodded, determination etched on his face. "We need to train and learn how to use it. We also have to protect the survivors." As they moved through the base, they began to organize. The crew divided tasks, some focused on weapon training, while others scavenged for supplies. The survivors joined in, working together for the first time since their return. Hope filled the air, pushing away the shadows of despair. Days passed as they trained, honing their skills with the advanced weaponry. They learned to fire the weapon with precision and power. Alexia led the training sessions, pushing everyone to their limits. "Focus! Remember, we are fighting for our home!" she shouted as they practiced. Each time they fired the weapon, the ground shook, reminding them of the strength they now possessed. One morning, as they were preparing for another day of training, a loud alarm echoed through the base. The lights flashed red and a voice boomed over the intercom. "Warning! Intruders detected! Xylar forces approaching." Panic rippled through the group, but Alexia remained calm. "Everyone, to your positions! We need to defend the base!" The crew scrambled into action, grabbing weapons and heading to the control room. Alexia peered through the viewing window, her heart pounding as she saw the Xylar forces marching toward them. They moved with purpose, their scales glistening in the sunlight. "They're coming for the weapon!" Sarah yelled, her voice strained. "We can't let them take it!" Alexia shouted. "We've worked too hard to let that happen." The Xylar reached the base, their leader at the forefront, a towering figure filled with rage. "Humans! You dare to challenge us? This weapon belongs to us!" It roared, pointing a clawed finger at the entrance. Alexia stepped forward, her heart racing. "This is our world! You will not take it from us!" With a battle cry, the Xylar charged and chaos erupted. The crew stood firm, firing their weapons with newfound confidence. The powerful blasts echoed in the air, lighting up the battlefield. The Xylar fought back fiercely, but humanity's resolve burned brighter. "Keep firing! We can't let them get through!" Alexia shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. She moved among her crew, encouraging them, keeping their spirits high. Max fought bravely alongside her, his shots precise and deadly. "They're starting to fall back," he called, exhilaration in his voice. But just as they began to feel victorious, the Xylar leader roared in anger. "You will pay for this insolence!" With a wave of its arm, it commanded the remaining Xylar to regroup and charge once more. Alexia felt a chill run down her spine. They were far from finished. The Xylar seemed endless, their numbers overwhelming. "We need to change tactics," she shouted. "Fall back to the control room! We can use the weapon's power from there." The crew retreated, covering each other as they moved. They reached the control room, and Alexia quickly began to calculate how to use the weapon effectively. "We need to channel its energy to create a barrier," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. As they worked, the Xylar pressed forward, determined to break through. The control room trembled as the Xylar leader smashed against the door, but Alexia was undeterred. "We're almost there," she urged, her heart racing. With one final push, she activated the weapon's energy. A brilliant light erupted from the device, casting an ethereal glow throughout the room. A massive barrier of energy formed around them, pushing back the Xylar as they attempted to breach the door. "Now! Fire everything we have!" Alexia commanded. With a resounding roar, the weapon unleashed its power. Blasts of energy shot through the air, hitting the Xylar forces with unrelenting force. The ground shook beneath them, and the Xylar staggered back, their ranks breaking. "We're winning!" Sarah cheered, relief flooding her voice. But the Xylar leader, furious and wounded, would not back down. It charged toward the barrier, its claws poised to strike. Alexia felt a surge of fear but steeled herself. This was their moment to finish what they started. "Focus your fire on the leader," she yelled. As the crew aimed their weapons, they unleashed a final barrage. The energy blasts hit the Xylar leader head-on, and with a deafening roar, it fell to the ground. The remaining Xylar, seeing their leader defeated, began to flee, scattering into the shadows. The room fell silent, and the crew stared in disbelief. They had done it. They had fought back the Xylar and defended their home. Alexia turned to her crew, her heart swelling with pride. "We did it together. We fought for our future, and we won." The survivors cheered, their voices echoing in the chamber. Hope had returned, stronger than ever. But Alexia knew this was just the beginning. They had reclaimed their weapon, but the fight for humanity's survival had only just begun.